Hello everyone. In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at the Autopilot An-225 Myriad. Now, the Autopilot on this thing is a little different than the Autopilot on some other aircraft, so we'll have to take a look at it piece by piece. So first things first, we climb inside here. Everything's looking pretty good. We're making a pretty steady climb. We're on the basic Autopilot mode right now. Now, this Autopilot will do much of the same work that you're probably used to in a regular Autopilot, like something like a 737. It just has things in different places than you're probably used to as far as, the different settings and the different modes. And it also requires some kind of different, I'm going to call it a philosophy change here. But like I said, we'll take a look at the individual components. First things first, the Autopilot, you've got two different main areas. You've got kind of this box up here, which is like your mode control panel, this is the AFC. And floating down here, of course, AFS rather. Floating down here, you also have some options here. It's also worth noting that the Autopilot is going to be working in conjunction with your HSI, in which case you can see I've got something selected. I've selected HAV. That's not HAV, that's NAV. That's a nav right there. So we're making our way towards our destination. And of course, we also have things like a heading bug, and we have roll modes and stuff like that. So first things first, let's go ahead and talk about the Autopilot itself. The way this system works is you basically have a couple selectors over here. You have your what am I going to use for my lateral mode here, and then you have this box over here, which is going to provide you with all the critical information about your current phase of flight. So one thing you're probably noticing, swinging all the way over here, is that we have this thing that says VAP, and it says 450. This is the system responsible for the Autopilot. This is what speed you want to be flying at. Now, the interesting thing here is on Eastern aircraft, it's typical that your auto throttle system is really more for approach, and it's less for just holding yourself at a specific speed during the actual journey you're taking. That's just kind of an interesting little difference that you'll see from time to time. So in this case, I've ordered 450, and I'm actually in a special mode right now, that basically flight level change. Now, if you're wondering where I got the number 450 from, it seems like an interesting number. That is actually very close to your 250 knots that you're typically supposed to be climbing at if you're less than 10,000 feet. Now that I've gone well past that, I'm actually going to go ahead and nose down here and give myself getting up to 550 kilometers an hour, which is going to get us a slightly quicker cruise, as you'll see in a moment. Moving over to the right now, we have our kind of altitude control. You'll notice right now I've pre-selected an altitude of 5,000 feet here. One thing that's a little different that you'll probably notice on this system that you probably haven't seen in other systems before is the fact that in this particular box here, if I wiggle this thing, you'll notice it's going up by hundreds of meters. If you don't want it to go up by hundreds of meters, if you actually float down over here, you can actually set it over here to be ones instead of hundreds. But again, it's going to depend on the altitudes that you want to climb at. This funky looking wheel right here, this is the vertical speed control. This is basically what's going to dictate how fast the aircraft is going to be going up and down. So now if you notice right now, the nose of the aircraft is starting to pitch back up because it's going to my newly selected speed here in VEL mode, which is basically flight level change. But if I wanted to and actually dial in a specific change, I could actually come in here and dial in the altitude change I want. Now watch out, because this is in meters per second. This is not in feet per minute. Like if you look down right now, you'll notice I'm climbing at about 10 meters per second right now. Again, I'm not in any of my altitude vertical speed hold modes right now. It's just worthwhile to take a look at that. Now, let's say I wanted to use the aircraft and I want to climb at 112% power here. So normally when you climb this aircraft, we don't climb at full throttle like this. We actually climb a little less than full throttle. We climb at about right there. What's going to happen now is my aircraft is going to pitch down a little bit, but what I really want to do is I really just want to climb at, a spit set speed. That's when these two buttons come in handy. You have the vertical hold button on the left, and you have the vertical mode button on the right. Now, this is a little tricky. This one is vertical speed. This one is altitude hold. So if I come over here and I click this button, do you see how this little knob twitched? We are now in vertical speed mode. So if I actually wanted to, I can come in here and reduce my vertical speed. Now, if you're thinking real quickly going, your nose just came down, that means you're going to start accelerating. The answer is yes, I will start accelerating. So if we wanted to activate the automatic throttle mode, we'd come over here, and that's what the auto throttle button is. Now, the auto throttle, like I said, it's a little different on this aircraft. When you order a climb, the auto throttle usually will automatically call up full power for you. If you want to go ahead and order descent, it'll actually call up no power idle. So it's a little different. So if I press the auto throttle button right now, you're going to notice that because I'm holding a set vertical speed over here, that we're basically going to hang on to that vertical speed of whatever it takes kind of a thing. Now, if I was on VEL mode, this would be a little bit different because basically our speed would pop up our engine power rather, would increase to give us the maximum vertical speed. If I hit that, notice my engines are immediately spooling up to 120% because so it gives me that maximum climb rate. That's a big difference between the two. Also, the aircraft is going to pitch up in a second here. But that's, again, part of the fun of flying this aircraft. It's also worth noting that we're coming up on our 5,000 now. Now, you're probably saying, what is high and what is max? High is the option that will go ahead and level your aircraft off immediately when I press that button. The one below it, this is the Mach hold button. So if you take a look right now, we're holding 550 kilometers per hour upwards. If we wanted to hold a specific Mach, like right now, I'll go flip it over to Mach real quick. We're holding 0.59 right now. If we wanted to hold 0.8, for example, I could come in here, dial in my point, look at my 0.8, get this where I want it, press the Mach hold button, and then it would hang on to that Mach all the way up. So that's pretty good for those two options. Now, if you want to level off at any time, you just have to reach over here, and you've got your vertical hold button. Now notice when we reached our target altitude, just like what you're used to in Western aircraft, we automatically reduced power because it was on auto throttle mode, but we're still hanging on to that 550 kilometers per hour, which is pretty quick for us. Now, if we want to change the altitude of the aircraft, we have a couple different ways to do it. The first thing we do, of course, is that we can order up a climb. The other method we can do it is we can float down here. Now on this panel here, you're going to notice that you have several big honking knobs here. This is going to be kind of the manual control of the automatic pilot. On the right-hand side, we have the pitch control. On the left-hand side, we have the bank knob. And then this real chunky kind of knobby thing here is our selected heading bug. So let's say, for example, I want to order a climb. I could sit here and give this thing a couple little wiggly waggles. And what will happen is the nose of the aircraft will pitch up. Of course, you're taking a look going, hey, why am I not getting altitude? Because we're currently on altitude hold mode. So what we have to do is actually disengage that mode in the event that we want to go ahead and cause it to do a specific thing. You'll notice, by the way, I tapped that button twice. It locked onto the new altitude very effectively. Not really what I wanted it to do. I'm just going to come over here and give myself a pretty hefty. By the way, you want to pull this towards you if you want to go up. You want to push it away from you if you want the nose to come down. That's just kind of the nature of that beast. Watch out, though, because it will lock on to whatever altitude that you desire it to do. So that's not necessarily something that you want. You have to make sure that you kind of pick a really, really funky number here to get that nose going up. So if I were to pick, like, let's say 7,000 meters over here, and then I would come over here and start manually cranking on this thing, this will give me the pitch that I need to be able to start climbing up to that altitude. For now, though, I'm going to go ahead and keep us nice and level here. I'm just going to tap that, and you can see it settled on 5,000 meters, which is pretty good. Like I said, nothing too extreme as far as altitude goes. Now, if you want to do a descent, it's going to be the same basic procedure. Of course, we can disable the particular control. Again, you have the pitch hold button here. So if I press pitch hold and I reach over and select a new altitude, it'll go ahead and select it. Notice because my altitude that I had selected was already there, my pitch hold immediately got canceled and flipped me to altitude hold button. So if I want to come down to 4,000 meters, for example, I'd have to hit vertical pitch mode, come down here, and then actually wheel the pitch knob away from me like that to get the nose to start coming down. Notice, by the way, my engines will start spooling down because I'm still in automatic throttle mode. Now, the advantage to this, of course, is I can control the exact pitch I want to descend. The downside of this, of course, is that when I do silly stuff like this, you can get this plane going real fast downhill. This is a big, heavy plane. So let's go ahead and level ourselves off. We got about 400, and let's go ahead and do that one. We want to press this one right here. Ready? 8, and hold. Oh, it was so close. It's like trying to put gas in your car and get exactly $20. Okay. Our next options we have on here are going to be dedicated for the purposes of turning the system on and off. You'll notice this APM button. This is the reset button. If you pop this button, it's going to set you into horizon and vertical mode. The reason this is a handy button is if you start fitzing with this and you get it all confused, you can always come over here and mash that button and quickly reset all the other options on here. By the way, if you notice a moment ago, I ordered 4,800 meters here, and if you look right now, our aircraft is taking a very long time to level off and get to the 4,800 meters. One of the things that this aircraft, Eastern aircraft in general, is their autopilots tend to be a little more relaxed as far as how aggressive they're going to charge after specific numbers. So that really surprises people, but something you have to remember with this aircraft is we have a 2G limit on this thing, so we have to be tremendously careful with pitch changes. All right, so that's it for up and down. Let's go ahead and take a look at this silliness here. So this is what's going to dictate what particular navigational source we're using. Now, if I want the aircraft to go on a specific heading, what I'm going to do is, first of all, always press the horizon button before you make any twists on this knob. You don't want it to go pop, 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 and go all sorts of crazy directions in the sky as you're trying to find what you want. So what we're going to do is we're going to select course 1, and then we're going to come down here and select the heading we want. So I can see right now my navigation says I need to be about 240 here. So I'm going to come over here, and this is the trick that I've used for this aircraft. And having been on other Russian planes, not unusual here. So I'm going to come over to the heading bug, and you can see I can actually adjust the heading bug here. So I'm going to swing over to 240. Yeah, that's pretty good. Now, if you have external avionics that allows you to change that heading bug, it works the same way. So with that all set, I'm now going to come over here and press the PC button. That's basically a course hold. So what's going to happen now is our aircraft is going to, oh, that's disorienting. It is going to execute ourselves a handy-dandy left turn onto 240. Now, this is really important. If we want to have this aircraft lock onto a course, let's say we want to go on 240 and actually lock onto where we're supposed to be, which, by the way, if you want to use a GPS course with this thing, you have to double check to make sure that you've selected your course over here and that you're actually going to intercept it and that GPS mode is selected down here on the left in order for this process to work. So I'm actually going to increase my bank just a little bit here. By the way, if at any point you want to manually bank the aircraft, you have this handy-dandy knob right here. Keep in mind when you do this, though, let me go ahead and give it a couple clicks. I immediately eject myself out of course hold mode. So if you look up, see how port PC is off? Now, if I don't touch anything right now, this bank will stay in until the airplane runs out of gas and crashes us. So one of the tricks I like to do is I'll actually bank the aircraft manually like this, line up with my course, and then press the wing level button. What that will do now is that will send us in the direction of where I ended up, independent of the heading bug. So it's a little different in that regard. Now, let's say we want to go ahead and start doing some navigation here. Right now, I've got my GPS as my desired source. So what I'm going to do is hit horizon to go ahead and level the plane, click this thing navigate mode, and then we're going to go ahead and press the PC button. Now, what's interesting here is because I don't have a heading that I'm flying, but I'm on horizon mode, the course mode will automatically grab onto the desired course we want to be on as soon as we get ourselves to that course. If you take a look right now, we are just about to hop onto that course there, and what it's going to do is you can already see the aircraft start to take a right turn here as it starts to grab onto it. We know everything's working because we have course stabilization enabled. So let's go ahead and get ourselves some altitude. Some folks might say, hey, how do I know what altitude I want to be at? Well, the good news is if we actually go over to the converter, we can do all the math for that. So in our case, let's say we want to do 33,000 feet. We can see that's going to be about 10,000 meters. So I'm just going to come over here, crank this up to 10,000 meters, just like that. That looks pretty good right there. I got to fix that. I'm going to come over here and press the AP speed button. That's going to go ahead and call my engines up to 120%. And it's also going to cause my aircraft to pitch up at my desired speed, which is 550 kilometers per hour. So again, this is kind of a little handy thing. By the way, once you cross 28,000 feet, I recommend switching to Mach mode instead of speed mode. It's going to be just a little bit easier for you. Also, if you're wondering how the heck do I get rid of that silly 1 right there, well, it's actually pretty easy. You can come over here, switch that to 1s, and we are good to go. So again, use what works for you. A lot of times what I will do with this aircraft is I will climb to the heading I want to be on, and then I'll just press the heading of the altitude hold button over here and kind of hang on to it like that. So now what about our other options? This little magic box right here. Well, this little magic box is pretty cool. This thing basically is going to give us a lot of information about the performance of the aircraft. It's not so much a tool as it is just kind of a reminder, like a digital kind of handyman kind of a thing like that. So if you take a look at the top of each one of these, you have all your different modes available. Now, I've gone through the manual a couple different ways, and some of the modes, I'm still kind of figuring out exactly what it is they're trying to achieve there, but I can explain most of them already. So if I could bring this to the left, you're going to see it selected VOR 1. This is the currently selected VOR. This is actually really important for us, because if we're going to make an ILS approach to a landing, we need to know what frequency we're on. So this is just a handy-dandy repeater. Now, I have my two ADFs here. They are ARK, ARC 1, ARC 2. That's going to be those two. We have whatever our DME is set to, and I couldn't quite figure out what the S is. I'm going to figure it out, though, I promise. Over here on the left-hand side, I have the ability to go ahead and select all my different speed options. TAS is true airspeed, GS is ground speed, APS is going to be selected autopilot speed. You can see right there, it's already ready to go. IAS is indicated airspeed. We're doing 550, which, yeah, sounds about right. This Delta B, I'm still working this one out. I have a theory, but I'm not sure. And of course, if you switch to M, that's going to give you your current Mach number. So like you can see right now, we're looking at Mach 0.62. When it comes to what do I like to leave this on, my navigator appreciates it when I leave it on GS. I like it on IAS because it's just a nice little reminder of what my current speed is. To the right here, we have our little instrument. This one's really, really cool too. This is going to give us our altitudes. So we have a couple different here. We have radar altitude. That's going to be our RAT right there. You can see we're at 5,600 meters. We have our ARC, or this is ARK1. This is our selected altitude. This is our auto-selected altitude. You can actually take a look over here and see we have auto-selected to 10,000 meters. There's our 10,000. We have, ooh, helps if you click it properly. And then, of course, we have our indicated altitude right here, which is going to go ahead and tell us what our new altitude is, what it is at the time, what it's actually reading. So it's a very, very handy tool. When you're coming in for a landing, I like to set this in for RAT because it's just a little bit simpler for us. And it also acts as a great way to double check to make sure I'm not going insane as far as what our approach speeds are and what our approach frequencies are and everything along those lines. Now, there's a couple extra buttons on here we have not taken a look at yet. So what I'm actually going to do here is I'm going to make sure we're on course, which we are. I'm going to press horizon. If you come down here, you're probably going to notice there's these two buttons right here. You have max pitch and max bank. What this does is this increases the sensitivity of the autopilot. If I select this option, it'll give us a little more pitch authority. If I select this one, it's going to increase the bank. If you actually look really, really carefully here, YP45, that's a pretty serious amount of this one. Now it's like this org, that's going to give us a lot more pitch there. Over here on the right, you have some interesting buttons. You have the HSI sync. They didn't describe this one in the manual. On the Tupolev 154, this actually lines it up properly with what it's supposed to be pointing at. I haven't seen it do anything yet, but I'm sure it does. I just haven't figured it out. The one to the left, OPER, that's going to be, this one's neat. It says AP turn 90. So I know what you're thinking. This gives us the ability to take a 90-degree turn. So how does that work? Well, let me show you. So I'm in horizon mode. I press this button, and you're going to notice that apparently nothing happens. That's because according to the manual, this is actually arming the particular device here. So now if I come here and hit circle left, theoretically what that should do is that should put us into a left circle. So I'm still kind of fitzing around with this one kind of a thing like that. Obviously we can hit all the lights, but unfortunately I've not seen it actually execute anything yet. If I were to swing it over to, let's swing it over to course mode real quick. There we go, course mode right there. Yeah, there's no course too, that'd be kind of fun. You would expect it to kind of grab onto it and execute that turn. But unfortunately, like I said, I've not got that to work the way I wanted it to yet. Still getting there, still getting it. All right, so as you can see, it's not that complicated of an automatic pilot. Some of you, of course, are wondering, what about this magical button that says the word approach? We're actually going to be saving that one for another video. Enjoy.